everyone, welcome to our Identity Plus session, Devices in the Enterprise, Managing Security versus Usability with Okta. My name is Teju and I'm on the product marketing team here at Okta, focusing on go-to-market for our workforce security products. In today's session, we'll cover the topic of devices, more specifically, the common issues that organizations face between security and usability, and how Okta's Devices Platform Service can help to maintain that balance. I'll talk through some of the current pain points, features that are available in the product today to help address those pain points, and focus on our roadmap. We'll also hear from Trey Ray, Manager of Cybersecurity at FedEx, who's also the wizard behind their Okta deployment. Trey will talk us through FedEx's vision for security and how Okta plays a critical part in that security vision, specifically our Devices Platform Service. And here's our obligatory safe harbor slide. Just to know that I am going to be talking about roadmap features in this presentation and giving you a rough idea of timelines, but those timelines are subject to change. So with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. We know that managing security and usability is often a balancing act for most businesses. Many times, organizations assume that it's tough to achieve both, and historically, that's true. So in an attempt to preserve usability, to preserve end user friction, we see that organizations will typically compromise on the security side of things. And that's usually because it's just tough to keep users happy. When it comes to your workforce, too many policies that are put in place by IT can impact day-to-day productivity and ultimately just cause users to dismiss those policies altogether. When end users are too involved into day-to-day IT operations and the changes that are associated with those operations, you're going to add more friction. And then, of course, on the customer or consumer side, unhappy users impacts adoption and usage, which can ultimately impact revenue. Now, looking at this from a workforce perspective, the term user itself usually encompasses different groups. You, of course, have your employees to think about, but then you also have other security teams, IT teams, HR teams that you need to work with. And even though all these teams are working towards the same or very similar goals, the way that you go about achieving those goals is different. And when cybersecurity is presented as an IT problem rather than a business issue, it's hard to get buy-in across all groups. But ultimately, you need to convince all of these groups that the changes that you want to make will benefit the business when it comes to securing device-based access. So you might be wondering, how can I utilize Okta to address this security versus usability trade-off? Well, in order to enable any identity use case, we've built a set of modular components called Okta Platform Services. These components can be combined to build new features faster and deliver on tailored experiences. Platform services are an underlying component of Okta's product, including our SDKs and APIs. And for today's conversation, I'll be focusing on the Devices Platform Service, features that exist in the product today and what's coming soon to help you maintain that balance. Fortunately, with the Okta Devices Platform Service, you don't have to compromise on either security or usability. Now let's talk through how devices should be an integral component of your cybersecurity strategy, and more specifically, securing device-based access. Now, it's obvious that devices have changed the way that we work. Mobility has literally transformed the enterprise, changing how work gets done. Organizations are actively looking for ways to promote employee productivity while still maintaining secure access to your data and infrastructure. Whether it's across mobile or desktop, we have different types of users, employees, partners, contractors, customers accessing corporate resources from a variety of different devices and locations. Now, in the past, we traditionally maintained that access by only allowing it to happen within the corporate network and maybe connected to a VPN and definitely on an IT managed device. But of course, with the influx of cloud applications, cloud hosted infrastructure, and on-prem apps that need to be exposed to the internet, organizations need to rethink their approach to security and move towards zero trust. Now, when it comes to securing device-based access, we see three top-of-mind use cases for organizations, and the Okta Platform Service, Devices Platform Service, directly addresses these three use cases. The first one is better visibility into all devices that are accessing your enterprise or your service. Admins need to understand the mix of devices end users want more visibility into their own devices accessing apps. And it's not just about visibility, it's also about taking device-specific actions. For example, from a workforce perspective, both admins and end users might want to remove a device if it's become lost or compromised. And from a consumer app perspective, you might want to limit in-app actions based on the platform the user is accessing your app from. And then we move on to the second use case, which is security. This is all about ensuring devices meet your organization's security posture requirements. And of course, we know that each organization is going to have its own requirements around device-based security. Some require very heavy device management across the board. Some require device compliance only for specific use cases like factory floor machines or kiosk devices. And some just require lightweight device checks. Regardless of what your use case is, ideally you have an access management solution that can encompass all of these use cases so that you don't have to use one-off device security solutions. And then number 3, it's all about the user experience. Whether it's your employees, customers, or consumers, seamless experiences are critical in ensuring both productivity and happiness. And this is where passwordless authentication comes into play. So I'll be talking about the great new features that Okta has planned here. Now, as I go through the various roadmap features that we have, I'll tie them back to these 3 key use cases and how the Okta Devices Platform Service maps features with these use cases. Before we dive straight into the features, let's take a look at the different classifications that we typically see in organizations. The first one is known devices. Now, this is essentially, has the system seen the device before? The second is registered devices. Does the device have an established identity in the system? The third is managed devices. Is the device managed by an endpoint management tool? And the fourth one is secure. So does this device meet your organization's security posture requirements? Now, from an Okta feature perspective, we've been focused in the past on known and managed use cases. So for the known use case, features like new device detection. For managed, features like device trust, integrating with a variety of endpoint management tools so that you can consolidate all of these access policies in Okta. But now we're also ready to tackle the nuances of secure and registered devices. So let's take a look at what that means from an Okta roadmap lens. First, we have device visibility and remote signout, which establishes device identity in Okta's Universal Directory. Now, this feature starts with a device registration, getting your device registered to Okta through an all-new Okta Verify application. The Okta Verify application you're familiar with on iOS and Android will be updated to support a device registration experience and will be delivering on an all-new app for Windows and Mac, also to support device registration. Now, once a device does get registered, that unlocks a few capabilities on the admin side. First, admins will be able to view registered devices. They'll also be able to see a list of users that are associated with each individual device. They'll also be able to see device attributes like serial number, IMEI number, operating system version, and more. And you'll also be able to delete and suspend individual devices in case a device is lost or compromised. And of course, for those of you who are building custom applications and require similar capabilities in your custom apps, we'll offer API support for all of these use cases. Now, device visibility and remote sign out tie back to that first use case that we saw around enhanced visibility for devices in the enterprise. Both of these are roadmap features that will be coming very soon. Now, that takes us to our second set of use cases around security. And the first feature that I want to talk about here is endpoint security integrations. Now, like I mentioned before, we already have a feature in the product today, device trust, checking if a device is managed versus unmanaged before end users have access to Okta. And that feature has been great, but we also need to check for the true security posture of the device. So this is where integrations with vendors like CrowdStrike comes into play. What we can do with these types of integrations is check for posture signals like, is there malware on the device? Has a specific OS system setting been changed? To then enforce access policies based on these signals. For example, if a device does have malware on it, more than likely you're going to want to deny access to Okta altogether. But if the device is simply missing a patch or a less critical setting has been modified on the operating system, you might still be okay with users getting into Okta by just providing multi-factor authentication. So those are the types of policies you'll be able to enforce with this integration. We're really taking the device posture signals from CrowdStrike, layering that with the user context that we have in Okta to then provide secure access decisions. This is also a roadmap capability that will be available early to mid next year. Now, staying on the topic of security, we know that IT no longer manages every device accessing your service. You still have managed devices, whether that's desktops or mobile devices you might be issuing to users. You're probably enforcing policies on some contractor-owned devices as well. But we know that for every managed device out there, there's also BYOD. Employees want to be able to access corporate applications while they're on the go from their personal device. But they usually don't want to access those applications if it means that their device has to be managed by an endpoint management tool. So that's where this next feature comes into play, enforcing device security posture on unmanaged devices. With this capability, end users will be able to utilize their personal device to access corporate resources as long as their device meets your security posture requirements. The way this works is that, again, users will register the device to Okta using the Okta Verify app. And then from there, Okta Verify will be able to handle native operating system level checks, things like operating system version, whether or not there's a PIN code on the device, whether the PIN code has a biometric, which you can then incorporate into your access policies to allow access, deny, prompt for MFA, or deliver on passwordless. So this is a great way to ensure secure BYOD. Employees typically don't want to get their personal device registered to an MDM. They don't want IT to have full control over the device, but this is a good compromise for both IT, security, and then also your end users. Now, this specific feature also aligns with that security use case and is on our roadmap for mid to late next year. Now that takes us to our third set of use cases around seamless experiences and more specifically passwordless. And this is where I want to introduce Okta FastPass. Now we've already had a couple of different features in the product over the past couple of years that takes us one step closer to passwordless, but FastPass delivers on true passwordless authentication. And the way that it works is similar to the other features. You start with getting your device registered to Okta. Now that's going to be across desktop and mobile. Then after that one-time registration, on subsequent logins, Okta will check for the security posture of the device based on the policies that administrators have set. And if everything looks good, you'll be able to access Okta without any credential prompts unless required by your administrator. Now, what that means is that you won't be prompted when you log into the Okta dashboard, desktop thick clients, SP-initiated browser flows, and then on the mobile, it means native mobile apps and mobile browsers. Now, the great thing about Okta FastPass is that there's no dependency on Active Directory for this to work, no dependency on LDAP or any other on-prem directory, and there's no dependency on endpoint management tools. So if you have registered devices and you want to enforce passwordless on just registered devices, that can be done utilizing Okta FastPass. But if you do want to layer on security policies, like checking if a device is managed before users can get this passwordless experience, that can be enabled through Okta FastPass as well. So as an admin, it's up to you to pick and choose which security requirements make the most sense for your business, and you can align those requirements with the FastPass experience. Now again, Okta FastPass aligns with that third use case around delivering seamless access, and this is a roadmap feature that will be available in the product very soon. Now we've talked through the use cases that we have, and many of these features have been focused on workforce identity. But we know that managing device-based access is not just an employee use case. So we'll also offer a devices SDK that matches many of the capabilities that I've mentioned in the previous features. So this SDK will include features like branded in-app MFA push notifications, and the push notification itself can be customized with your own messaging, plus layered with biometrics if required. Now that also means you can leverage multi-factor authentication for cross-device experiences. For example, if you have a user that's logging into your application from the first time from a web browser on their desktop, You can prompt them for MFA through your native mobile app before they're able to log in. Now, these features are great because it means that users don't have to leave your native mobile app to finish the MFA experience. They can stay inside the application and continue with the login. Now, the other thing that the Devices SDK will be able to do is utilize device context for login and in-app transactions. Now, in the future, if you need to build any applications that require the device to meet a specific security posture, that can be incorporated as well, similar to what you saw on the previous slides with enforcing lightweight device checks. This is something the Devices SDK will be able to do in the future. Now, you can see these capabilities help to maintain usability and preserve your branding and offer enhanced security for applications that hold more critical information. The Devices SDK is also tied to all the use cases that I mentioned and will be available early next year. Now let's take a look at how these Okta Devices Platform Service features map back to those device classifications that I talked about earlier. Again, we started with known device and new device detection, and that will continue to stay in the product. We talked about the concept of registered devices and introduced some new features, device visibility and remote sign out, that's facilitated through registering your device using Okta Verify. And then we have managed devices, device trust. We'll continue to include device trust as a key feature in our product and actually make enhancements to this feature set to make it easier to deploy. And then lastly, for secure devices, we talked about endpoint security integrations and lightweight security posture checks. So you have all these device classifications, and on top of that, you can layer Okta FastPass to deliver passwordless experiences on registered, managed, or secure devices. Again, that's going to be driven through admin policy. And we have SDK and API support across all of these use cases. Now, wrapping things up here, the Okta Devices Platform Service gives you multiple avenues to incorporate signals into your access decisions. Whether you need to enforce security and usability for employees or customers, we have you covered across the board based on device state. And we have great integration partners already to help you get started on your Zero Trust journey. So now I'd like to pass it over to Trey to give us his take on how the Okta Devices Platform Service and the features that are coming up in the next few months are going to help FedEx on their vision to achieve device-based access. Over to you, Trey.
Thanks, Teju. I'm Trey Ray from the FedEx Information Security team. I'm pleased to be with you today to discuss our participation in the Okta Devices and FastPass beta. For those of you who tuned into the FedEx Octane 20 session or read the FedEx Customer Journey article on Okta.com, you may recall these are some of our IT and security goals. FedEx is almost 50 years old now, which means we have a lot of older IT systems. And we've been hard at work retiring legacy IT systems, including our mainframe applications, as part of our IT renewal journey led by our CIO, Rob Carter. We're also simplifying and modernizing workforce identity and access management. We've accumulated several on-prem identity solutions over the past 15 to 20 years. This includes legacy SSO, Federation, and MFA systems. We're now able to retire many of these legacy identity solutions as we continue to deploy the Okta Identity Cloud. We're also adopting a zero trust security model at FedEx. This means we're moving away from a trust but verify approach to a never trust, always verify model. This involves not only verifying users, but also verifying the devices they are signing in from. The goal is to evaluate each and every sign-in and tailor the sign-in experience based on user, network, device, and application context. We're now exploring how the Okta Devices Platform and FastPass solution may help us achieve these goals. These are the 6 tenets of our Zero Trust Security program. They include an enterprise IDP based on the Okta Identity Cloud, adaptive and contextual multi-factor authentication, an access gateway solution for handling authentication for legacy apps paired up with network segmentation to ensure our network is no longer flat, a privileged access management program to secure the keys to the kingdom, And we're also working with our Cyber Command Center on a user behavior analytics effort. The Okta Devices and FastPass solution is being evaluated to cover the device trust tenet of our Zero Trust security program. FedEx uses almost every type of computing device imaginable. This ranges from couriers with Android mobile devices scanning packages for proof of delivery to pilots and aircraft technicians using their iPads to run our airline, to knowledge workers with Windows desktops and laptops handling our back office admin functions. And this is just to name a few examples. One of the challenges we've run into is that Okta's current access policies have user and network context but lack much device context. This results in very binary access policies that are limited in scope. For example, it's very easy for me to create an access policy to require username and password while on the internal FedEx network, but require MFA when the device is off network. We really need the ability to provide access policy granularity in terms of device context to handle the nuances in the diverse FedEx device landscape. We're looking to provide secure but low friction user experiences that don't impede the FedEx operation. In a moment, I'll speak to a few examples of how we tested dealing with these device nuances. As I mentioned, FedEx has been a participant in the Okta Devices and Platform beta program. This includes testing the new Okta Identity Engine, which includes a much more flexible access policy framework. The Okta Identity Engine will provide more knobs for us to turn when defining access policies and how these policies leverage signals from the user, network, device, and various other sources. During the beta test, we were able to create Identity Engine-powered access policies to tailor the sign-in experience with if-then access decisions based on user, device, and network signals paired with the risk ranking of the application. This was achieved by grouping apps into what I call risk buckets. These application risk buckets are then linked to new device-aware access policies that determine the sign-in experience for that particular set of applications. A key component of the FastPass solution are new Okta Verify apps for Windows, macOS, Android, and iOS that register the device with Okta Universal Directory. With the new Okta Verify app, devices can now be categorized as either unregistered, which means they don't have the Okta Verify app installed at all, registered, which means the Okta Verify app is installed and the user is authenticated to Okta, registered and managed, which means the Okta Verify app is installed, the user is authenticated, and the device is also managed by an MDM or UEM solution. And finally, registered, managed, and compliant, which means all the above, and device posture signals have been ingested from an endpoint security solution. Now let's take a look at some of the use cases we tested during the FastPass beta. This first test involves an unregistered device off-network accessing a low-risk app. So this could be an employee using their personal iPhone to access a low-risk app like the cafeteria menu using the public cellular network. So in this case, we're not even going to bother installing the Okta Verify app on the device because it's such a low-risk app. We'll just require a username and password to access this lunchroom menu. Moving down the stack, this next test case involves a registered and managed device on the FedEx network accessing a medium-risk app. Now this could be a FedEx sales rep at the office accessing a SaaS app to track sales leads. Since the user is on the FedEx network and the device is managed by our UEM solution, we're going to provide a completely passwordless experience to this medium-risk app. The next case involves that same registered and managed device, but taking it off the FedEx network and accessing that same medium-risk app. So this could be that same FedEx sales rep who's no longer at the office. He's down at Starbucks, and he's on the Starbucks Wi-Fi. Now in this case, it's still going to be a passwordless experience, but because the device is off the FedEx network now, we're going to step up and prompt for an MFA factor like Okta Verify to access that app. Now this final test case involves that same registered and managed device still off the FedEx network down at Starbucks, but accessing a high-risk app like the payroll system. In this case, since the risk model is now elevated, we're going to require username, password, and an MFA factor since it's a high-risk app running off network. As you can see from these test cases, the combination of the Okta Identity Engine, along with the Devices platform and the FastPass solution, should help us dial in the appropriate sign-in experience based on signals received from the user, the device, and the network, married up with the risk ranking of the application. Now, looking forward to our next steps. My team is currently working with our end user services team to integrate their Microsoft Modern Device Management rollout with the Okta Devices and FastPass rollout. This includes rolling out Windows Autopilot for touchless device imaging, along with Windows Hello for Business to harden the Windows sign-in with TPM managed PIN or biometrics. Now, this is really important because in order to enable these passwordless app experiences, as I described earlier, you really need to harden that front door Windows sign-in to unleash those passwordless experiences. We're also testing the integration of Azure AD conditional access with Okta MFA using the Okta O365 MFA pass claim feature. Now, this feature allows Okta to satisfy MFA pass claims for Azure AD conditional access policies that would otherwise require users to use Microsoft MFA. Now, this is really critical to us because we don't want our users to have to enroll in two different MFA solutions for obvious reasons. Based on the results of the beta testing, we are confident that the Okta Devices platform and the FastPass solution will help power the device trust tenet of the FedEx Zero Trust security program. Thanks for the opportunity to share my experience testing the Okta Devices platform and the FastPass solution. Back to you, Teju.
All right, thanks Trey for that great presentation. Really good to have your insight on how FedEx is planning your Zero Trust strategy, specifically with Okta and Devices in the mix. So now let's head over to our Q&A. We've had a couple of questions come in, but I also have my own questions for you that I want to start with. The first one is, how do you think FastPass is going to better serve your end users when you're fully able to deploy it in production?
Sure, Teju. As I mentioned during my presentation, the access policies that we've got available to us in Okta today, they really make things very binary in terms of MFA. It's either off or on based on whether you're on network or off network. With FastPass, we're hoping to be able to make that more granular by having FastPass work with our UEM and MDM solutions. So now we can determine whether the device is managed as well as, of course, registered if it's got the Okta Verify agent installed. And then, we can make things a little more granular. In some cases, if they're off network and the device is managed by the UEM solution, maybe even still provide a passwordless experience if it's a low risk application. We don't have that today.
Yeah, sounds like it's going to be definitely an updated experience for your users. Passwordless sounds like it's a great move though. So what do you think is next for you and Okta, and what are you most looking forward to in your future deployment?
Yeah, I'm real excited because we've kind of got the FastPass and Devices project working with a sister project, as I call it, with Modern Device Management. So our Windows guys are trying to roll out Modern Device Management using things like Autopilot for touchless imaging, which is obviously really important in this work at home environment. But in addition to Autopilot, being able to harden the Windows sign-in with PIN or biometrics so you can unleash those passwordless experiences. I've always thought it's not really a good idea to have passwordless flows to an app if you really hadn't hardened the Windows sign-in. So being able to use a facial auth or maybe a fingerprint to get into Windows, and then now you can unlock those passwordless experiences. If the policy dictates it based on the device being registered and managed.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks again, Trey, and thank to all of you for watching. Please make sure to share your feedback by completing our survey, and stay with us because we have a few great sessions remaining in today's event. Thank you.